Look forward to your comments today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garamendi, and thank you for convening us to talk about the first month of the Trump administration. The attacks on our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and the rule of law are coming fast and furious, so it's hard to collect all of them, and I appreciate the effort to try to inventory them today. I represent the wonderful people of Montgomery County, Frederick County, and Carroll County, Maryland, the 8th Congressional District, and I am by training a professor of constitutional law, which is what I've done for the last quarter century at American University. So in reviewing the highlights or the lowlights of the last several weeks, Mr. Garamendi, I thought I would start actually with my very first day on the job. I went to sign up for health insurance in the basement of the Longworth House Office building, which I was delighted to do because my job entitles me to sign up for health insurance, and I recognized how fortunate I was. And as I was down there, a line of other new members began to form, and I looked at them, and then I was going through at the same time some memoranda that my office had received, and I noticed that some of the first bills we were going to be looking at were to set the stage for dismantling the Affordable Care Act, for voucherizing Medicare, for pulverizing Medicaid and downsizing it, and then for demonizing Planned Parenthood and making it impossible for hundreds of thousands of citizens across the country to get basic health care. And I said to myself, tell me that it's not the case that I'm entering Congress with other members who are going to be signing up for health insurance that they get as part of their job, and then they're going to go upstairs to the floor of the House and vote to strip 22 million Americans of their health care in the Affordable Care Act. But believe it or not, this is precisely what has transpired, and there is a very clear move on to try to dismantle the Affordable Care Act. The majority has voted more than 60 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act, but America has woken up to the fact that it's for real this time, and we have hundreds of thousands, millions of citizens mobilizing across the country to defend the Affordable Care Act and to demand accountability from their member of Congress, and I'm thrilled to see that. Also, during the last few weeks, we all read a report from 16 intelligence agencies of the United States, including the FBI, the CIA, the National Security Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and a dozen more, all of them expressing their confidence, their very strong belief that Vladimir Putin, the KGB, and the Russian government worked a campaign to undermine and sabotage American democracy in the 2016 presidential election. It included acts of cyber sabotage, espionage, fake news, and propaganda, all entered into American political discourse and our institutions in order to change the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. And what we've gotten from the President of the United States is a series of blithe dismissals of the whole thing, saying repeatedly, other people do the same. I think it was yesterday that commentator Bill O'Reilly said that he needed to criticize Vladimir Putin, who was a killer, to which the president responded, lots of people are killers, and essentially, have you looked at what America has done recently? That kind of talk is absolutely outrageous and scandalous, that the president would say that. The point is not to join the killers of the world. The point is not to participate in the league of bandits and bullies and dictators and despots and right-wing movements that are forming all over the world. The point is to take them on and to stand up for democracy and human rights and the real ideals of the country. So back in the Home Office in Moscow, they must be chortling that the President of the United States would establish a moral equivalency between the first democracy, the first constitutional democracy ever created on earth, and a thug who is presiding over essentially a kleptocratic authoritarian regime in Russia, a man who has said that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the single greatest catastrophe of the 20th century. So we have that to deal with. Meantime, instead of taking on the real authoritarians on earth, the president summons up all of his courage with Steve Bannon, and they impose a ban on people coming to America from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. And they invoke 9/11 several times in the course of establishing this unprecedented refugee ban. The only problem is that the terrorist hijackers who came to attack the country on 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. The vast majority of them came from Saudi Arabia, which is the stronghold and the organizing center of Wahhabist, fundamentalist, radical Islamic terror on earth, which has been promoting and disseminating militant Islamist ideology all over the world. And yet, the Trump administration did nothing about that, either because they were too powerful for them to take on, or because Mr. Trump has had extensive business dealings with Saudi Arabia, as well as in other countries that were passed over in this ban. Now, of course, because this is a religiously oriented Muslim ban that's meant to whip up propaganda and hysteria and chaos in the country, it has nothing to do with national security. It has been struck down in different parts or in whole by 5 or 6 federal district courts, most recently by the United States District Court in Seattle. And the case is now in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. There are so many problems with the executive order in terms of due process, equal protection, free exercise of religion, and so on, that there are multiple judicial decisions that are striking down different aspects of the executive order. Well, what else do we have going on? Today, in one of the committees that I serve on, the House Administration Committee, there was a 6-3 vote to dismantle the only federal election entity, the EAC, which is charged with trying to promote the cybersecurity of our elections. And that vote was along party lines, 6-3, to dismantle the Election Assistance Commission, which had been created and established on a bipartisan vote many years ago. And that was just taken down. So I would say that there appears to be an effort to plunge America into a certain kind of chaos at this point. That, of course, has been the explicit wish of Steve Bannon, who has described himself as a Leninist, who wants to tear down our system of government and demolish the politics of the country to replace with something else, which has gone unnamed. So, my fellow Americans, Mr. Garamendi, these are very serious times. I am thrilled that the people of America are organizing in every state of the union, in every community, to build up the capacity to resist these attacks on our Constitution, on our Bill of Rights, and on the rule of law. The majority of the people who did not vote for this president are mobilized, they're galvanized, and they understand that that eternal vigilance is indeed the price of liberty, and people are going to remain eternally vigilant and passionately so during the course of this administration when the attacks continue to come fast and furious on our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And with that, I would yield back to the distinguished gentleman from California.
Mr. Raskin, thank you so very much. Indeed, your experience as a professor teaching constitutional law will be a very valuable asset to this House, and particularly in the context of what is transpiring here on the floor with the repeal